So my name is Amanda Jacobs. I'm a U of A MSGIST student, and my presentation is on opioid treatment accessibility in Maricopa County, Arizona, a network analysis of certified opioid treatment programs and buprenorphine providers. A brief background: the rise of the opioid crisis is much attributed to the overprescribing of opioid medications due to pharmaceutical industry push, claiming their minimal addictive risk, and that was starting in the early 1990s. Since then, we've learned opioids are indeed highly addictive, and as such, many people are struggling with opioid-related addictions. So public health has worked to combat this epidemic by a combination of medication-assisted treatments, known as MAT, and counseling behavioral integrated therapies. Specifically, buprenorphine is the first medication to treat opioid dependency that is permitted to be prescribed or dispensed in physician offices. And you can also obtain buprenorphine at certified opioid treatment programs known as OTPs, and individuals going to OTPs also receive other treatments such as medical, counseling, vocational, educational tool sets to combat addiction. So my analysis question really for this project was, what geographic areas in Maricopa County are struggling with accessibility to opioid addiction treatment, and that is either via qualifying buprenorphine provider or OTP program, and therefore who's at higher risk for encountering opioid-related treatment barriers. So this is my study area, Maricopa County. It is located in south central region of Arizona, approximately 9,200 square miles. It is the fourth most populous county in the United States, with approximately 4,410,000 plus people as of 2018 estimates. And the key data that was pertinent to this analysis is described on this slide and the sources, but that included data for my boundaries, my certified opioid treatment facilities, buprenorphine provider sites, my street center lines for my network data set, mean population centroids, and demographic data. So high-level analysis steps of kind of how I took to approaching this was starting with my data pre-processing, so selecting all my geographic borders and treatment locations specific just to the county. And then next was building a functional network data set. So taking my street center lines, correcting any topological errors, ensuring proper connectivity so that I was able to run my analysis. And for this, I used two different tools, the closest facility solver and the service area solver, to really drill down and look at that question, which I'm going to talk about more over the next few slides. And lastly, examining trends in accessibility to opioid treatment. So this map shows the distribution of opioid treatment locations in Maricopa County, with the buprenorphine providers, 656 sites, being the blue circles, and the opioid treatment programs, 182 sites, the pink circles, and this is as of January 2020. So my first look at this was using the closest facility analysis tool in ArcGIS Pro, and I essentially ran that 3 different times to solve for distance from each census tract to either the nearest opioid treatment facility, nearest buprenorphine provider, or C, either or, so either closest OTP or buprenorphine provider. And I did that to see if there was any major differences between accessibility. The parameters I included motor transportation driving. I was looking at length in meters, and distance costs as my travel costs, and I included one-way restrictions, or prohibited one-way restrictions. So I instructed this tool to find the one closest treatment location from each mean census tract point, utilizing that network data set. And what I found was mean route distances to the nearest OTP location were determined to be approximately 1.88 miles, to the nearest buprenorphine provider about 1.26 miles, and to either or about 1.11 miles. And this chart just shows the frequencies of those routes and where they fell with regards to distance to miles. And you can see quite a few did fall within 2.5 or less miles, but there were others that were 5, 10, 50, and even nearly 100 miles in distance. So looking at this spatially, these maps show the opioid treatment program route distances and the buprenorphine MAT provider route distances. Those yellow lines are the shortest routes and the red being the longest routes. And you can see that they tend to branch outward from the urban area, which is kind of the middle of that yellow is Phoenix and the surrounding cities. And this map here shows the combination of both those things. So taking into consideration all my sites, whether they be OTP or buprenorphine providers, these are the results of my route distances. And again, we can see the shortest route distances appear to cluster around that urban city core, and they begin increasing, moving outwards from there, which is especially true for the larger southern census tracts, where those route ranges were much greater than the median. So I supplemented that closest facility analysis, and I also looked at service areas. So I utilized the service area tool again in ArcGIS Pro to solve for specified distances for A, opioid treatment facilities alone, buprenorphine providers alone, and C, either or. And utilizing this tool, I used the same parameters: driving, lengthened meters, distance costs, and one-way restrictions prohibited. And I instructed it to find driving distances towards facilities that fall within 2.5, 5, and 10-mile driving distance ranges. So these maps show the output of that. Again, the opioid treatment program service areas on the left and the buprenorphine MAT provider services on the right, with the lightest polygons being that 2.5 driving distance and the darker being up to that 10-mile driving distance. And again, this map shows the combination of all my sites, so whether that be OTP or buprenorphine provider. And again, we can see service areas branching outward from that urban city cluster, and the underserved areas are observed in the more rural outer census tracts. So using that information, I was able to do some population estimates, and how I did that was looking at my service area polygons, any census tracts where the majority of the tract boundaries fell within that service area, I included those as areas served. So whether we were looking at traveling to an opioid treatment center, a buprenorphine provider, or both, it remained around 97% of the population in Maricopa County being serviced in those areas. So what I was able to find from this is, although the majority of the county does reside in that kind of urban bubble, the surrounding rural areas are disproportionately impacted with regards to treatment accessibility. And this map highlights that approximate 3% total population falling outside of that in that dotted line. And upwards of nearly 100,000 Maricopa County residents are living in these areas surrounding that, which would create problems with accessibility to attaining opioid treatment. And these here were just the resources that I used for this presentation.